This is America in Space, a weekly news and information program on current events dealing with the space industry.
Welcome, and thanks for joining me today. I'm Dawn Meyer, Space Coast News Editor. The May 6th mission of the Boeing crew flight test was scrubbed during pre-launch operations when a pressure regulation valve on the liquid oxygen tank of the Atlas V rocket's Centaur upper stage exhibited an unexpected oscillating behavior. The Atlas V, manufactured by United Launch Alliance, has flown missions since 2002 with a 100% success rate, but this is its first mission with astronauts, so all of the launch criteria is new for this type of rocket. Here's the scrub call-out from the launch team.
Okay, evaluating the SRV, we're most likely getting above the call cycles of this valve. We still have 2+ hours to go, so most likely exceeding the fall value. We do not have a path to proceed further at this point.
Roger. So at this point, your recommendation is to secure operations for today?
That is correct.
Roger. LD, LC on channel 1.
Yes, sir. LD concurs with that.
Roger. Flight and Slick, channel 1.
Flight here. Slick's on channel 1.
Yeah, Roger. So the engineering team has evaluated the vehicle is not in a configuration where we can proceed with flight today. So we're going to initiate our scrub and recycle operation.
Roger. Flight copies.
Roger.
Steve Stitch, the NASA Commercial Crew Program Manager, and Torre Bruno, President and CEO of United Launch Alliance, explained the problem from the press conference shortly after the scrub call at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
I want to start off saying how proud I am of the integrated team, the United Launch Alliance, Boeing, and NASA team. Did a great job of working through the countdown today and did a great job making a tough call following the flight rules that were all set up for this crewed mission ahead of time. You know, as Sunny has told us a couple of times, there was nothing magical about a certain date to go launch on. So we're taking it one step at a time, and we're going to launch when we're ready and fly when it's safe to do so. Overall, things were going really well in the launch countdown. In fact, we were a little bit ahead of the timeline and talking about maybe being able to close the hatch a little bit early. The team did a great job of getting out to the pad and getting Butch and Sunny in the vehicle, and things were going well when the team noticed on the Centaur there's a valve, a LOX valve that regulates the pressure in the Centaur upper stage, and so the pressure is very important for a couple reasons. One, you need the pressures right in both the LOX and the liquid hydrogen tank to provide propellants to the RL-10 engines that will fly in the second stage and take the crew into orbit, and also for structural capability of the tank. And so we saw the self-regulating valve on the LOX side had a bit of a buzz, and so it was moving in a strange behavior. The flight rules had been laid out for this flight ahead of time with the crew at the launch pad. The proper action was to take the scrub, and the United Launch Alliance team did a great job of assessing the data, talking through various options, and put us into a scrub condition. So I really commend the team for making that tough call. It was really impressive to watch them work through the problem. Now we'll take the next day or so to look at the data and to recommend the next course of action. Again, the most important thing over the next 24 hours or so is to look at all the data, look at the fault trees, look at how the valve's performing, and then look at the remaining life potentially in the valve, and then we'll take the next steps and fly when we're ready.
So I'll start by echoing what Ken and Steve said. This was really more about flight rules than it was about the significance of the event, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Our philosophy is we don't change the fueled state of the vehicle when the crew is present. You can do it otherwise from that, and other people do, but that's our philosophy, and so we built our flight rules around that in our procedures, in our decision points. What occurred, as was said, is that we have a mechanical valve that vents the ullage pressure on the lock, so it's venting gas. It's not dissimilar to many other valves like that. You have one in your home on your hot water tank that's not all that different. And every now and again, in rare occasions, a valve like that can get into a position where it's just off the seat, its temperature, its stiffness, everything is just right, and it'll flutter, or it'll buzz in this case, and cycle. And that we've seen that before. We've seen a sustained buzz like this on AV53. We've seen short buzzes maybe 3 or 4 times. And what you would typically do is activate the solenoid that forces the valve closed, cycling the valve, if you will, and then you turn that off and you let it return, and it almost always stops. It has in fact stopped. Once we had the crew off, we cycled the valve and it stopped buzzing. If this were a satellite, that is our standard procedure, and the satellite would already be in orbit. But that changes the state of the fueled Centaur, and we don't do that when people are present. And so our flight rules called for us to scrub and to take the crew off before we cycled that valve. So that is what has happened. Right now we are going through all the data. That's why I'm here and not Gary Wentz, whom you would normally see because he's busy working. We don't have an instrument on the valve that tells us how much it opened. We are inferring the buzzing by looking at accelerometers that are nearby on the RL-10 rocket engines. So what we couldn't do during the count in real time and are doing now is going through that data to assess how many cycles were on the valve and whether or not it was fully open or not, so that we know if those count as full cycles. We qualled it to a certain number. In fact, I'll tell you, we qualled it to 200,000 full opens and closes. If that buzzing was a full open and close, we would have been approaching our estimate, that number. Valve's probably good for a lot more than that, but we didn't test it to that, and therefore that's our limit. So the team will work on that all night. Fair chance we'll know tomorrow whether the valve exceeded its life or not, or whether it has enough life against the qual limit that we established to do another attempt. If we do, we'll get right back with our partners here and figure out when that would be. It could be a pretty quick turn. If not, we'll have to remove and replace the valve, which means we have to take the pressure fully off the Centaur upper stage. We do that by stretching it to support it. Remember, it's a pressure stabilized stage. It has to be either stretched or under pressure to be structurally stable. And then we would remove and replace it. We have spare valves. We know how to do it. We've done it before, but it would take several days. And so we would coordinate with the range and with, with our partners at NASA and at Boeing, and then we'd have a date for you, pretty soon. But I can't tell you that right now because we're still looking at the data. So again, I promised Butch and Sonny a boring evening. I didn't mean for it to be quite this boring, but we're going to follow our rules, and we're going to make sure that the crew is safe.
Following a thorough data review, ULA decided to replace the valve on the liquid oxygen tank of the Centaur upper stage. In order to accomplish this task, ULA must roll the rocket with Boeing's Starliner spacecraft back to its vertical integration facility at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. The ULA team will perform leak tests and functional checkouts in support of the next launch attempt. Astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams will remain in crew quarters at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in quarantine until the next launch opportunity. The crew flight test is now targeted to launch to the International Space Station no earlier than Friday, May the 17th. And we'll be covering it live here on About Space today. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for listening from your home or where you work. Listen each Tuesday for This Week in Space with John Gomez. And join me every Friday for America in Space. From the Florida Space Coast, I'm Dawn Meyer, Space Coast News Editor for About Space Today.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to share our program with your family and friends and follow us on Facebook. Join us each week for news and information on America in Space.